right, guys, let's finish up on chapter 9 here. Got a couple more examples to go through, and then we'll get you going with some homework. So, these last couple are a little trickier, but we'll work our way through it. The average of a group of quiz scores is 31.8. There are K quiz scores in the group. The average of 10 of these scores is 24.3. Find the average of the remaining quiz scores in terms of K. Okay, a couple of things that are a problem here. The biggest one is that the numbers are really weird, okay? And so I think, working with a smaller related problem, I think that the skill we should have here is working with better numbers. So instead of picking 31.8, let's make it 30. Instead of 24.3, let's make it 25. And then let's pick a value for K so that we just have something to work with to see what we get. So let's just pick 50, okay? We could have picked anything we wanted. If you're following in the book picked 50, so I'm just gonna go with that one. Okay, so if I know that the average of a group of quiz scores is, we're saying 30, okay? And there were 50 quiz scores. Well, you add them all up and you divide by a certain number to get to the average, which means that 50 times 30, or 1,500 must be the sum, because then when I divided by 50, I got 30 as a result. Okay, so this is going to be important. The sum of all of the scores, if there were 50 of them, has to be 1,500. Okay, and so the average of 10 of the scores, they said was 24 point something, we chose 25. So the sum of those would be 250. And we want to find the remaining. Well, if the sum of all of them is 1,500 and the sum of 10 of them was 250, then the sum of the remaining is 1,250 after you subtract. Okay? So there were 50, we took 10 scores, so there were 40 scores remaining. So if you took the 1,250, the remaining total, and divided by 40, you would get the average of the remaining scores. Well, so what did we do? What was the actual math there? Well, we took the total, 30 times 50, because there were 31.8, we rounded to 30. We assumed there were 50, this would be our K. And then minus the 10 that we already had, divided by 40 scores. Okay, our goal then is to write this in terms of K, and so we're going to replace these numbers with what they actually were. So instead of 30, it was like 31.8. Instead of 50, it was K. The 25 was like 24.3. We're going to put that in place of it. And this is K here as well. And so if I do that, I'm left with this scenario right here, which is what we're looking for, some expression in terms of K that would represent the average of the remaining scores, okay? So working with a little bit better numbers, I think the math makes sense, but it would have been a little harder to come up with this at first with just variables and not so nice numbers, okay? All right, let's look at one more example. We've all done problems like this one, usually using algebra, okay? A train leaves Roseville heading east at 6 a.m. at 40 miles per hour. Another eastbound train leaves on a parallel track at 7 a.m., but traveling at 50 miles per hour. What time will it be when the two trains are the same distance away from Roseville? Okay, again, we've done this algebraically a million times before, but how could we make this simpler, look at a simpler related problem? Here's how the book handles this. Okay, so the faster train is gaining on the slower train by 10 miles every hour, right? One's going 40 miles per hour, one's going 50 miles an hour, so in an hour, the second train goes 10 miles farther. So change the conditions to be that the first train traveled for an hour. We'll just pick a random amount of time, 1 hour is easy to work with, and then stopped. Meaning that the second train would have to make up 40 miles, okay? Because that first train was going 40 miles in an hour, so in an hour it would have traveled 40 miles. Making up 10 miles every hour meant that it would take the second train 4 hours to do this, right? Because we were gaining 10 miles every hour. So if it took 4 hours and it started at 7, it was going to be 11 o'clock when that was all said and done. Now if I want to check the answers, okay, 11 o'clock, that's a 5-hour trip for this one, times 40 miles an hour is 200 miles. This one, 11 o'clock's a 4-hour trip at 50 miles per hour is also 200 miles. They've traveled the same distance. So that looks like what we've got. All right, good luck you guys.